And when you develop the habit of actually saying, okay, this is a friendship founded on goodness, founded on God, if we start to lose sight of that, if we start to lose sight of a particular boundary, if we start to lose sight of a particular sort of responsibility, if we start to lose sight of respecting the other, well, let's just have a look and see what needs to be shifted. How am I losing sight of God in this?
Yeah.
You know, and that's a question which we've come back to, I think, again and again in many ways, is how is God present here? Or how have I forgotten God here in this moment, in this friendship? And it's almost like a good examination of conscience in a certain sense.
Yeah.
Is to ask, where is God in this?
Hey, and welcome to this week's episode of Living Fullness. I'm Stina Constantine, and joining me on the podcast is Father Sean Burns. Each week you'll hear us chat about a range of topics from virtue to relationships, comments on cultural shifts, and lessons we learn as we go along. So we're so excited to have you join us. So sit back and enjoy being part of a conversation with a couple of friends.
Hi, Stina. How are you going?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Very well, thank you. What's been happening in your life?
Lots and lots. So the people of Patreon, our Patreon community, will have heard at the very beginning of this season that Virtue Ministry is taking a new direction. And we've just kind of revealed that to the world. So it's been a lot that's been happening behind the scenes, just shifting. All of our talks, for example, have been shifted. We're phasing out most of our talks. We've put new foundational talks in, connecting with different people. So now that we're sticking with the adult side of human formation.
So that's the new direction.
Moving away from youth ministry, it's a whole other kettle of fish to work with. So lots changes, lots of good changes that's happened.
It's a whole new world.
If you say so, yeah. No magic carpet rides over here.
Yeah.
What about you? What's happening on your front?
The cathedral is being the cathedral. Enormous and awesome and challenging, and I think I'm learning something new every single day that I'm there. It's really cool, really challenging, but it's keeping me busy. So just the day-to-day of being the administrator of the cathedral is it's pretty crazy.
Lot.
Yeah.
Good kind of crazy.
Good kind of crazy. Good kind of crazy.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
That's the way. The way. Well, this kind of episode kind of stems from something that we've both observed since you moving to Wagga. So maybe we could start with, well, actually, maybe we should talk a little bit about what that observation was, and then maybe we can get into
sure
talking about your move. And the observation was really around people making comments ahead of your move, you know, people starting to say things like, hey, you must be so excited Father Burns is moving to Wagga. It must be so nice to have him so close. That must be really nice. You know, that kind of comments that were happening. So you and I have had a couple of conversations about that. So that is going to be kind of the main topic theme, if you like, of this particular episode is around what is the center of a friendship. Yeah. And for us, the center of our friendship is God.
Yes.
So we're going to try and pull that apart a little bit. So to do that, maybe we should rewind and go.
That was a rewind sound.
That was a rewind sound, was it? Sounded like an alien underwater.
I'll work on it.
We might do some other accents that you're good at. Let's your strong suits.
No worries.
Maybe we should rewind and go back to what was it like for you to move from Narrandera to Wagga? Like, what's it like as a priest who effectively has to pack up all of his stuff again and move again, like whenever the bishop calls?
Yeah. Traumatizing. I don't know. It's difficult to explain. Like,
I mean, I'd be traumatized if I had the bookshelf that you have, the collection that you have. That alone is overwhelming.
So when Bishop appointed me to Narrandera, he said, you've got 1 year as administrator, and then so long as you don't burn the place down, so long as you don't do a terrible job, you do actually do something positive, you'll have 5 years as parish priest. So I was kind of expecting 6 years at Narrandera. So to get a call about 9 months into my time there at Narrandera as the administrator saying, Sean, I'm appointing you as the administrator of the cathedral. Will you accept? And normally when the bishop says, I'm doing this, will you accept? The will you accept part is kind of just a nicety.
Well, yeah.
I mean, unless you've got a really, really good reason as to why you're not going to accept it. Like, you know, it's just like, well, I can't think of any really, really good reasons aside from my love Narendra. I don't want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. But also that's kind of how, good obedience works. It's not just someone who, forces you to do things outside of your will.
That's true. That's true. Bishop does listen to us, and in the end, he does have the final say to say, no, actually, I really do need you to go here. But he actually wants us to bring our will to the table as well. And I think that's something that's really beautiful about our bishop, is that he has that concept of obedience, which is that he's not just barking orders. He's actually wanting us to hear the word of God through through what he's saying and to respond to it willingly. So that is actually pretty cool. I jest at times. But it wasn't as traumatic as the move from Vianney to Narendra. And I say traumatic only because of the sheer amount of stuff that I'd collected over 5 years. Like, I was ready to move from the seminary, man. I was ready for that. What I wasn't ready for was, how much stuff do I have? Why did I keep that? And why did I keep that? And what on earth is that? And what's growing on it? It's just sort of, you come across all this stuff that you realize that, it's like, oh, there's a cup of tea from 2 years ago. Like it's
gosh.
Not quite that bad, but like you go through stuff and you're like, oh my gosh, there's just so much stuff to clean, pack, throw out, all of this stuff. So that was legitimately like, ugh. But I was ready to move from there. I wasn't so ready to move from Narendra because I just started to get invested and I just started to really get to know the people well. They started to get to know me well, and against all odds, I think they even started liking me. And so we sort of had this moment where it's like, oh, I have to announce to them that I'm going.
Yeah.
And that was harder than what I thought it would be. It was because I thought I've only been here less than a year, so probably won't be too bad. But it was actually really hard. I realised just how much as a pastor, I'd grown attached to the community, and they had even grown attached to me. And so it was hard moving to Wagga, but it was also exciting because I knew that I was taking over from a really, really good man who'd done wonderful, wonderful things. I knew I had a bishop who was supportive, and I knew that I had an assistant who was pretty awesome. And so, it was like, okay,
three of those who we've had on the podcast.
Yes, that's right. So it was actually like, okay, this is actually a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah.
Like, this is pretty decent. So that was, it was exciting as well. And coming back to Wagga, I sort of picked up a lot of the old friendships that I had that I maybe, you and I kept in contact, a couple of the other really close friendships that I have kept in contact in Narendra, but also then picking up some of those threads that you just didn't keep in contact while you were away because of the distance. And that was okay. You can just kind of go back and be like, oh, you're back, and so that was also very nice too, to rekindle some of those. And so it was a good experience, and one that was both sad and exciting and joyful all at the same time. Yeah. So
yeah. Not your first experience, and probably won't be
exactly
your
right.
last.
Exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. No, you're spot on. Spot on.
Yeah. So I guess in light of that, having a conversation around what was happening with these different people. Who was, and the people that was making these comments weren't just everyday ordinary Christians. It was also like a number of clergy as people as well who obviously know because of the podcast and whatnot that we're friends, and who were all like, hey, this must be really exciting for you and rah rah rah. And I remember being like taken aback by that, being asked that question, like, are you excited to have him so much closer? It was like the phrasing. I remember taking it to prayer because I wasn't like sitting with excitement of you being close. Like, it wasn't actually happening. So I was like,
he's coming back.
It wasn't quite like that either. But it was like, Lord, is there something wrong? Like, what's going on? I'm excited that you're coming to Wagga because it's a new part of, like, it's a new journey in your ministry, and that's like really exciting and really awesome. But I'd have the same excitement if it wasn't Wagga. Like, even if you were being sent somewhere else, I'd have the same level of excitement then. And I'm excited that the people that I know in Wagga get to experience your gifts and talents through your ministry as well. Like, that's another added bonus that I get to almost witness them go through, and being able to experience that through you. So that's a really joyful part about it. But I remember after a while I was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if there's something wrong here. So I remember bringing it to you and saying, hey, I'm here. I'm getting this. Are you getting this? And is it really cold-hearted of me that I'm actually not all that as excited as people seem to assume I will be? And I remember you going, no, that makes total sense. It's perfectly understandable that you're not extreme on any end, because at the end of the day, God's at the center of our friendship, not anything, not, this distance that's between us, or lack of distance that's between us and our friendship.
Yeah, for sure.
And I guess even thinking about things in the past in terms of distance in our friendship, it's never really been that big of an issue. You were in Albury for a while there.
Yeah.
We maintained a friendship then. I even remember being overseas. I was in Norway visiting my family right before Virtue Ministry was launched. So I was in the thick of finalizing stuff for ministry. And I was coming to you with all sorts of questions and looking for guidance. And you'd get back to me when you had the time. There's no issues around that. Nor when, I also remember there was a time when you were in Rome. I think you were studying something to do with the seminary perhaps. And I had an absolutely awful experience, a particular encounter that left me completely shaken, and that was quite hurtful. And I remember being really upset about it. And I'd let you know that, hey, this thing has happened as a friend. Here's what's happened. And I'm actually quite upset about it today. And you were like, I'll give you a buzz. Give me an hour or 20 minutes or whatever it was, whenever your next break was, I'll give you a buzz. And I remember you sat there from Rome on the phone with me, praying with me as I was sitting there in tears, so upset. So distance has never really been...
It's not been an issue for us, has it? I mean, whether, as you say, whether it's closeness or whether it's distance, and look, from where I'm sitting, it's a very similar situation, particularly thinking about your deportation saga.
Yeah. As
all of that was going on, and in some ways continues to rage on, I've been concerned for a friend, but not for our friendship. It's if you go to whatever country from here, well, then you go to wherever country from here, because that's where God wants you. That's how this rolls. And the friendship necessarily then shifts and changes according to the circumstances that we find ourselves in. We allow it to take its course naturally with the hand of God on the reins. That's just how we roll. That's what we do.
Yeah.
The beauty of our friendship is that it's also come with sort of a second family attached to it.
Yeah.
Because the Nugent household has just kind of become a second home for me.
Yeah.
Where I come in and there's Mrs. Nugent there, and there's Mark, and there's
whoever
often
else is
other
living with
guys
us at that time.
just hanging around g'day father, how you going? And it's actually really, really cool to kind of have this sort of second home that I can just kind of pop into and be like, okay, time for a cuppa, because life is
a lot
at the moment, and sometimes we need coffee
or tea.
So that's actually been a really cool aspect of our friendship, and to know that it has as its foundation the love of God. And of course, it's not as though we do that perfectly. We're not canonizing our friendship here. We're not saying that we've done this in any way, shape or form in a perfect fashion. We don't continue to do it in a perfect fashion. As much in all as there's mutual respect and admiration, and distance isn't the measure of our friendship, be it close proximity or otherwise. The fact is that no friendship is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm even thinking about some times where there have been tensions in our friendship, even just podcasting, we'll have little disagreements and annoyances and pushing each other's comfort zones.
Yep.
And that's whatever. But we were also talking about this just before recording, that most of them we don't even remember.
No.
We can kind of go, oh yeah, I think we had something. What was that even about? I don't know.
Yeah.
Can't remember what it was even about.
It's difficult to actually recall.
No, because they're there, whatever, it happens in the moment. Like there's a bit of a disagreement or a bit of a challenge. We work through it and then we moved on. Like it's not a thing that leaves any kind of lingering mark on our friendship. We've always managed to be able to work through that. But there are times too where we will hold some very strong and opposing views as well. I mean, one that comes to mind is around, the ways that we might prefer to see things like the tensions around Australia Day dealt with. And we have two very different ideas about how we'd like to see that happen. And we can argue to and fro and, put all sorts of things on the table and fro. And we do. And then we walk away from it like, yeah, okay, cool. We just have like a difference of opinion. It doesn't actually change our friendship.
No.
Because we differ on one of these things.
No, that's right. That's right. You're spot on.
And mind you, these arguments aren't always very polite.
No.
They can be very passionate.
We're sitting around with a cup of tea and, how do you feel about this matter occurring in the political moment? Oh, very... It's not like, two English people sitting around with crackers and tea. It's two people very passionate about a particular point of view. But
just see things from my no, I can't. I won't. There's lots of pushing and shoving verbally.
Yes. That's right. So, and this sort of brings us to a topic of boundaries. I mean, I think we've seen boundaries both kept and also pushed. Like we've experienced that within our friendship. So we've seen boundaries pushed in terms of, I can remember you confiding in me one day about something that was challenging in the church space. And I was quite outraged about it. Like I was like in proper, sort of go get the pitchfork and the torch. We're going to solve this problem. I'm going to the bishop. I'm going to do this. It had me proper in
all
arms.
Guns blazing.
All guns blazing. And I was cross.
Yeah.
And just, it sort of, you were quite quiet about the situation. It was like, okay, wow. Because I was like, but I had I think it might have been a couple of days later, I sort of thought about it. I was like, actually, Stina confided that in me. That was something that she confided in me. It wasn't something for me to go and speak to the bishop about. It wasn't something for me to go and be like, hey, council of priests, check this out. Yeah. Like it was something for Stina to go to the bishop about.
If I wanted to.
If she wanted to. It was something for Stina to go and say, I'd like to make a submission to the council of priests or something like that. Like it's not for me to do that. So that was, it's just one area where I can see that, sort of playing out where those boundaries don't always, they're sometimes pushed a little bit, right? On other matters, we've been quite assiduous about boundaries, which has been great. And they've sort of continued to grow in our understanding of them. Like, for instance, honouring each other in terms of physical and emotional boundaries. Now, admittedly, with this one, I am not a hugger. I'm not a hugger at all.
Anyone that knows you, even just a little bit more than like your name and where you are,
that's right,
knows this.
It's like, I'd like to give you a hug.
I'd rather you didn't.
I'd settle for a sturdy handshake.
Although you do high fives too.
Well, yes, I do. I can do high fives and I can do good handshakes.
Yeah.
Despite that fact, we've kind of always kept a pretty assiduous lock on terms of physical touch. Like it's if we hug, it might be twice a year, birthday and Christmas. Like it's sort of it's pretty rare.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's high fives and waves.
Yeah.
Like that's as far as it goes. And I think to that's developed naturally because we genuinely care about one another's reputations for a start. Mm-hmm. And along with that goes, hanging out in the presence of others. Like we're pretty assiduous about that as well, without creating an absolute stock standard rule of, oh no, we happen to find ourselves alone in a room, we must quickly get out of here. Without being stupid about it. We've managed to say, well, okay, we hang out generally in the presence of others. But we've also picked up the boundaries of sharing as well, I think. Mm-hmm. Like knowing exactly what to share and what not to share. Like there's certain things that you're not going to share because that's for your girlfriends or it's for your spiritual director, and similarly the stuff that's for my priest brothers or for my spiritual director.
Yeah.
That just like those are two separate things that it would be inappropriate for us to share with each other. So it's been, you know, and even just the boundary of being able to share one another's joys and sorrows without any over-reliance. You know, so we enjoy each other's company, we enjoy each other's joy, we enjoy each other's sorrows, enjoy each other's sorrows. No, not enjoy. No. We're not sadists. We can sit with each other in sorrow. But it's not like something sorrowful happened, I better call. It's like, well, no, something sorrowful happened and life moves on. You know, something joyful happened. Fantastic. Life moves on. For the significant sorrows, you know, I mean, like when my father fell very, very ill.
Absolutely.
I sent you a message and I said, look, could you please pray for my father? He's really, really sick.
Yeah.
You know, like that was a significant sorrow. And I knew that I'll shoot a message to Stina and to a couple of other people as well, just to say, look, here's what's happened. Could you please pray for the situation? Yeah. So, and look, ultimately, I think the lesson that our friendship continues to teach me is that no friendship is perfect. Every friendship has its issues and its problems. But so long as it's founded on God, and look, that foundation it's not always going to be a perfect foundation. And it isn't with us as it isn't with anybody who's human. It's the foundation is always a bit, you know, it shuffles from side to side at times. But we kind of recognize that and redirect. And when you develop the habit of actually saying, okay, this is a friendship founded on goodness, founded on God, if we start to lose sight of that, if we start to lose sight of a particular boundary, if we start to lose sight of a particular sort of responsibility, if we start to lose sight of respecting the other, well, let's just have a look and see what needs to be shifted. Let's see, how am I losing sight of God in this? Yeah. You know, and that's a question which we've come back to, I think, again and again in many ways, is how is God present here? Or how have I forgotten God here in this moment, in this friendship? And that's, you know, it's almost like a good examination of conscience in a certain sense. Yeah. Is to ask, where is God in this? Yeah. And I'd really commend anyone who's got good friends, and I'm sure everyone has, you know, a good friend or a group of good friends. Just remember to ask that. Remember to ask, where is God in this? And are there any points at which we need to redirect this friendship? Yeah. Yeah.
And then have those conversations so you can actually do that.
Exactly.
Because that's the other part, is that we've not shied away from having conversations that have been challenging or sticky or uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're like, I don't really know where. But you know, so what? Okay, you don't know, ask the question, then you'll know.
Precisely.
Let's not overcomplicate this thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
But even, I mean, part of it too is because, like you said, our foundation is in God, that there's a level of trust that we have in this friendship that no matter what challenge comes our way or what circumstances of life present, whether that be deportation on my part or being sent somewhere extreme for you in terms of ministry, or being asked to do something that seems out of the box. For you, those are the circumstances, those are the situations of life. They're not the foundation. Yeah. So the friendship doesn't change. Sure, the circumstances around the friendship may change, but there's still a friendship there because God, who isn't changed, who's unchangeable, remains the center of our friendship.
That's right. Thank you for that conversation.
Yeah.
That was a good
conversation.
Likewise. Yeah.
So thanks to all those people who asked those questions, because you gave us content for an episode.
You did indeed.
You gave us food for thought. Food for thought. And I remember there was a couple of people who asked that question. I very abruptly answered them back like, no. And I think they looked at me like, huh? Have they had a fight? Like, what's going on? No, I'm a bit confused by the question. I need to go away and think about this.
Sure.
So that takes us to the end of this episode, A Truth, Beauty and Goodness from you, Padre.
Mine's a resource that I may have used before. If so, I'm not sorry.
Okay. Let's go again. Don't say it's from my academy. It's a different book.
It's a resource called Integrity Restored.
Ah, yes.
Really, really, really good.
Yeah.
It's got some fantastic stuff on it in regards battling pornography and like actually forming a battle plan. So I encourage any man or woman who's struggling with that issue, integrity restored. It's not a silver bullet.
Yeah.
But it's another weapon in your arsenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it.
And Stina, what's your truth, beauty, and goodness?
So mine for this week was just a light, joyful encounter after I was leaving the chapel. I had my morning prayer session. I'm trying to walk out, and as I've turned the corner, this seminarian from the cathedral turns the corner that I haven't spoken to. I've seen him in passing many a times, but just have never really, not never, but haven't had a chance to have a conversation in probably about a year. So I was having this delightful conversation for a couple of minutes with this particular seminarian. I thought, oh, this is lovely. Like, what a great way to start the morning. And then within seconds, I hear from behind me, Stina. It's like, who's that? It's Bishop. Oh, good morning, Bishop. And Bishop's got two priests, like visiting priests with him that he's showing around the diocese. So he introduced me to these couple of priests, and turns out they were from South India. And so we were having this great conversation. I thought, oh, wow, like it's happening here. Next minute, you turn the corner. I was like, oh my gosh, it's all happening. Like, is this the gathering place? Is this the watering hole? Like, what's happening here?
Yep. Out the side of the cathedral.
Yeah. And I was saying this out loud. And then again, within seconds, like Father Connell turns the corner. Like, it really is.
Yep.
This really is a gathering spot. So we just had this light, like, no, like nothing of any kind of significance, just a joyful morning, way to start the morning where everyone's gathered in the same place accidentally. And I find myself in the middle of it going, what am I doing here? I'll leave now. So yeah, it was just one of those random ones.
Yeah, very good.
God loves the little funny things.
He does indeed.
Hey, Padre, we need to do a Patreon plug.
Then let's do it in the voice of one of the characters from The Simpsons.
All right, go for it.
Hi, everyone. You might remember me from such podcasts as the Living Fullness podcast. You might also remember me as your cathedral administrator. I'm here today with a public service announcement to ask you to join our Patreon community so that we might be able to keep this podcast going and deliver many a good contented episodes for you. You can join for as little as $5 or as many as $75. Know that your contribution is greatly something.
Greatly appreciated.
Appreciated. It's greatly appreciated. Remember, it's greatly appreciated.
Oh, bless.
God bless you all.
We did tell you it would be coming someday. That was gold. Absolute gold. So make sure you all jump over to our social media handles, Living Fullness on Instagram, or Virtue Ministry on Instagram, or Virtue Ministry on Facebook, to keep in touch with everything that's happening Virtue Ministry and podcast related. But as always, we will catch you next week, and until then, know of our love and prayers.
God bless.